Hi guys, my name is Stefan. I'm a Facebook engineer. I work on the Open Graph with our strategic partners in Europe, and I'm going to do this presentation with Connor here.
Hi guys.
Connor is a support engineer working with developers. So before we start, what we'll do is that we'll give you guys a little bit of background. Facebook brought real identity to the web. This is about your real name, first name, last name, your visual identity, your profile picture, and that's me in the center. We also allow people to connect with each other and become friends on Facebook, right? This allows them to express who they are by interacting with other people that are their friends, and it's about authenticity. We also launch something that we call the like button. In fact, a bunch of people, millions of people use the like button on Facebook to like content on the web, right? So they could like movies, they like TV shows, they like music, artists, sports teams, celebrities. But the truth is, you just don't like things. You also do things. And it turns out that what you do is also contributes to who you are. So this is why we introduced a way for people to do things while they're connected to Facebook using their real identity. So now you can watch stuff while connected to Facebook. You can read stuff. You can listen to stuff. In fact, it's not just stuff. Those are typed objects, structured data. Because you listen to music, you don't just listen to music. In fact, you listen to a song, and a song belongs to an album. And the album was published at a specific date, and there's an artist that interpreted those songs. And you can do more because you can run a track, like in Endomondo. You can cook a recipe. You can check in at a place. You can take a photo. You name it. Infinite possibilities. This is what the Open Graph is about. For developers, the Open Graph is a way for you to help users express what they do in your application. It's a way for you to model what users can do. And for users, it's a way to discover new application and install new application. And this works on all platforms. It works locally, but most importantly, it works globally across the world. Okay, so in addition to the identity piece, the Open Graph is about distribution. It's about global distribution. It's about how you can help your users discover and install applications. So let's picture this. I'm a user of the app. I use the app, I perform some actions, and the application publishes to the Open Graph. So now Facebook will produce stories on Newsfeed, on Ticker for my friends, on my own timeline, and my friends will see those stories. They may click on those stories. When they do so, Facebook will send them to the app, and they can become new users. They will become new users, registered users. You will have information about what they do, and when they perform actions in the app, you will publish back to Facebook. And at that point, their friends will see the action and may click on it and become new users as well. This is great. It's great for growth. Again, it works globally. So let's look at an example. SoundCloud. These are the activities that you can do in SoundCloud. You can play a sound, you can like a sound, you can post a sound, etc., etc. You get a picture. Now, when you perform an action on SoundCloud, SoundCloud will post to Facebook. So let's take an example. For example, in SoundCloud, you can upload a sound. They call this post. So each time I upload the sound, they publish an action to Facebook. And they do so on the desktop web application that they have, on the mobile web application that they've built, iOS native, Android native, and they also have a desktop Mac OS X app that they've built. And from all these applications, they publish to the graph. And you can see your friend's activity on Newsfeed, and here's Simon's activity on SoundCloud. So I see that Simon liked the sound on SoundCloud, right, on the desktop web. Now, Click. And Simon's activities on SoundCloud can also be seen on his timeline. And here's a timeline aggregation unit that shows the sounds that Simon liked on SoundCloud. And if I click on that story, Facebook will send me to the SoundCloud web app where I can listen to the sound or register as a new user anywhere in the world. Of course, works the same way on mobile app. More interestingly, on iOS, what happens when I click on or when I tap on the SoundCloud story, Facebook will open the iOS native app that I've installed. What if I haven't installed the iOS app? Facebook will send me to the App Store where I can download the app and become a new user. This is great. Of course, this works exactly the same with Android, and we won't go into the details of this. So again, the Open Graph is great for growth and discovery of your app anywhere in the world. This is the iOS, Android screens. So as a software developer, how do you take advantage of the Open Graph? There are 4 steps. Only 4 steps you need to remember. It's pretty easy. First, you need to model your data. So 2 questions. 1, what can users do in your app? And 2, what type of objects do they manipulate? Once you get the answer to those questions, you go to the dev app, the application dashboard on Facebook, and you model your data. You create your custom object types, and you create your action types. Next, you build your timeline aggregations. So this is your way to tell Facebook how to surface your structured data on users' timeline. So you can do a bunch of stuff. For example, here I have the sounds that I liked on SoundCloud, or you can build timeline aggregations that say what are the preferred artists that you have. The third step is to mark up and expose your objects. Right? So each Open Graph object instance has to be described in a HTML page with the appropriate Open Graph meta tags. You also need to expose those objects and make them available on a public web-facing server, because Facebook will hit your server and parse that data. So tagging objects is really straightforward. Here's an example that we have on our Social Cafe sample app that you can download. Some tags are really important. An example of that is OG URL, which points to the URL of your object, and that's the unique identifier for this specific object instance. And it's also the ID that we'll use to send to your application, either web or as a deep link in mobile. And we'll talk about that later. And finally, you can publish an action. And this is a REST API call. It's super simple. No complex code, no plugin, nothing special, just a REST API. And if the call is successful, you're done. Facebook will produce a story on your friend's ticker and newsfeed and on the user's timeline. So, this is the visual flow of how things happens. Just, picture this. A user performs an action in your application. And as an app developer, you will post this action to Facebook, either server-side or client-side. And at that point, Facebook needs to know a little bit more about the object instance. So we will reach your web server, parse the data, and you're done. That's it. It's that simple. So enough with this slides. Let's move to the demo machine, please. And Connor will show you those 4 steps in practice. Connor.
All right, perfect. So Stefan showed you how to do this in theory. I'm going to do this really quickly to just show you how we build it in practice. So this is my app that I'm developing, Social Cafe. It's the example that was shown earlier. What can people do with it? Well, with this app, people can actually drink a beverage. So I'm just going to type that in now. And we're going to hit Get Started. Okay, so I now have an action type of drink. And you can see that the app dashboard has already created a property beverage, which is the object that we're going to be describing the drink action against. And it's pre-populated some tense stuff here, which is just for stories that appear in the past tense. So this all looks fine. I'm going to accept this and continue. And now I have an object of type beverage, right? So there's a couple of properties that we need. So this one, OG-URL, is the most important. This is the place that you find this object on the web, and it must be on the public web, or else Facebook can't publish an action against it. It has a title, an image, and a description, and some optional properties that we can go into later. So finally, we have an aggregation. Now, this is like a collection of data that describes a bunch of objects or actions that you've been working with. So I'm going to describe an aggregation about beverage. I'm going to make it my favorite beverage. So this is just a single object, and I'll call it favorite beverage. So when I save this, it's going to start collecting data about the beverages that I'm drinking and choose my favorite. So this is just a warning to say that it's going to only use fresh data, but that's fine to confirm. So now I've created, on my dev app, I've created a drink action, beverage object, and a favorite beverage aggregation. So let's start marking up some objects. I actually have one already prepared. So this is a cafe latte. Simple, publicly facing web page, and we can look at the view source to see the metadata. Hopefully you can read that. So you can see the important ones here that we described already. There's the title, there's the image, there's a description, and most importantly, there's the URL. We have another one here, OG type. All of these objects are strongly typed. So when I've created this, I make sure that it says beverage. So it has, the content here is this is the app namespace, and then this is the object type. So we have a tool to make sure that that data is okay, and we call it the Open Graph Debugger. So I'm just going to switch to that tool. And when I drop my URL in, Facebook will, we call it scrape, it'll take all of that data and make sure that it's okay. And I can see that I've got all the information that I need. So it's got type, title, image, description, and there's no errors, so that's perfect. So we now have an object, we've described our action, and we can start doing the cool part, which is publishing some actions. So to do that, we're going to use the Graph API Explorer. So this is a tool that we have for, basically for prototyping your actions. So I'm going to switch to the production app, which is Social Cafe. I need to get an access token because I can't publish any data without an access token. So I select the permissions, I hit get access token. It wants me to log in with Facebook. That's fine. And now I have an access token. So I can do a post to me, Social Cafe drink, which is my action name. I'm going to add a field of beverage and drop in the URL that we had earlier. So when I hit submit, it should publish my action. It doesn't yet. That's expected, right? We needed to ask for an extended permission, publish actions, which is above the basic permission set. So when I hit get access token and select publish actions, there's a new dialog. And this time it says that it's going to post on my behalf. Hopefully that's readable. Post on my behalf, including objects you like, beverages you ordered. So when I add that, I get a new access token. And now when I hit submit, I get back an ID, which says that this has worked. So I can take a look at that. So this is the action I just published. And you can see that it's not just a link. I didn't just share a link to this. It's a real story, and it's structured data. So it says, I drank a beverage at Social Cafe. And I can look at it on mobile, and it'll look exactly the same. So that's pretty cool. But we can actually do better than that. We can put in some more information. I'll use the Graph API Explorer again, but I want to show you some of the things that you can do. So within the app dashboard, we saw our basic drink action, and we had our property beverage. We have some additional properties, which I'll expand here now. including tags, so you can tag other people in this story, and place, so you can describe the place that you drank this, and a message, which means you can put your own text on this as well. So let's do a more interesting example. So this time I'm going to drink this beverage again, but I'm with Stefan, so let's tag Stefan in this. I need Stefan's user ID, which I get from the graph again. I need a place ID. I'm going to use Digital October. Let's add a message. So I'm going to mention Simon in this message. So I hit submit again. I get back another ID, eventually. And let's take a look at this one. All right. So now I've drank a beverage at Social Cafe with Stefan, who just got notified on his phone that I mentioned him, at Digital October. And also it said, Simon Cross, you should try this place. So Simon's just got a notification on his phone to say that I mentioned him in a comment. So he knows about this now as well. So that's a much richer story. Stefan.
Okay. Thanks, Connor. Let's switch back to the slides. So all the IDs that Connor found, you can actually query the Graph API to get them. You don't need to memorize them at all. And I'm sure you'll do that during the hacks. Oops. So I actually need to use this in the right, direction, not move back. All right. So we talked about custom actions and custom object types. In the Social Cafe sample, you can drink a beverage. It turns out that we've identified some actions that are super popular, so we've created predefined actions for you, and we call that those actions, we call them built-ins. So you can read an article, you can watch TV shows, movies, you can listen to songs, and you can like objects. In fact, you can like any type of objects. And this is super simple. It works just the same as what you've seen earlier. And here's an example call for the og.likes API so that you can like an object. So let's see this in action with Connor. Move back to slides. Sorry, to the demo machine.
Great. So go back to the dev app. So we're back on our Social Cafe dev app. This is good, isn't it? Okay. So this time I'm going to add another action. So we've got our drink action. I'll add a new one. And it's going to be like. So you can see we've got a list of the built-in actions here, including read, follow, watch. This time it's going to be like. Now, crucially, it just says that people can like an object. This is because it's a shared action. It's built in, and it means that every app can use it, which means that the type must be just basic object. So I hit submit. And let's take a look at the action type. So now we can't edit any of this because it's built in. Also, instead of having a beverage, it's just the object. So when I publish this, I'm going to like the latte that I drank. When I publish it this time, I just use this URL. And I change the object property reference to just object. And that's worked, so let's take a look at it. Okay, so now this time it says that I like a beverage. Now, the Open Graph's smart enough to know that even though I used a generic object property, I used a URL for a specific type of object. And that's why it says that I like a beverage, not just an object. So it's smart enough to know what object type this is when I publish the like.
Okay, so back to slides, please. We've seen how we can published a bunch of actions to Facebook. Now let's see how you can read from Facebook, how you can read actions. Yes, you can read past actions that apps publish to Facebook, any application. This is really powerful. Think about it. It enables an infinite number of scenarios. It also allows you to create great personalized experience for users, right? You can read the user's past activities, and now, because you know his taste, you know what he's done, you can show him a really, really cool personalized experience. And not only you can do that for the user from any application, but you can also read the past user's friend's activity and show him more content that's super personalized. However, before you do that, like anything else in Facebook, you need to ask the permission to the user. And Connor talked about permission scopes. Here are the permissions you need to know in order to read the past activities from a user. For example, if you want to read the user's music activity, you'll use the user action.music permission. So you request that, and if the user accepts, you can pull his past music listening activity. And the listen action is a shared action. It's a built-in, so it has a special namespace called music. The theory goes the same with video and news. And if you want to read a user's friend's past listening activity, you'll go and request the friend's action music permission. Okay? And if you want to read past activities from a specific application, what you'll do is you'll request the user action app namespace. So you'll need to know the application's namespace. And for Social Cafe, we saw it's social-cafe. So later today, you'll be hacking on something. You'll be developing applications, and hopefully you'll be using Open Graph. For example, let's say you want to show a user's, build a playlist for a user. And you may want to use the Deezer API to do that. So what you'll do is that you'll request the user action music permission, you'll read his past listening activity, and boom, there you go. You have a super personalized list of songs that the user listened to, and you can build a playlist for that user. So let's see that in a demo. Back to the slides, please. Sorry.
Perfect.
Keep saying slides.
So this time, I'm still using the Social Cafe app. It's really important to know that when I'm granting permission to this, it's to an individual app, which means other apps can't do this unless they also ask for permission. So this time I'm going to ask for some extra stuff. I'm going to ask for user actions music and friend actions music. So now it's popped up with a request for my music activity and my friend's music activity. I'll allow that. And now I'm going to do a GET request on me/music.listens. And now I can see data about what I'm listening to and what I'm using to listen to it. So there's an Aphex Twin song on Spotify. There's some more stuff on Spotify. And I can do the exact same for Stefan. So if I put Stefan in here, I can get back what he's listened to. So for example, Stefan's listening to a song called Searched on Deezer. Let's see what that is.
Yeah, that's
Zemfira?
Zemfira. I don't know. I figured I'm here. I'd rather listen
Some
to
local music?
Local music.
Nice.
Is that good?
Very good.
I liked it. It was fun.
That's cool. So you can build this in for your friends as well, and you can see what your friends are listening to. But as well as that, you might want to get data for an individual app. So Stefan showed the namespace. So we can do that as well. Now, we can't do that with the Graph Explorer, but there's a quick hack. So when I choose an access token here, this actually generates a URL to our permissions dialog. So I'm just going to change that. Hopefully you can see here, there's a scope field, which I can change to add additional scope. So I'm going to say,
Let's try SoundCloud.
SoundCloud, all right. SoundCloud. And I'll do friends action SoundCloud. So this time it's popped up with specifically SoundCloud activity and friends SoundCloud activity. So I'll hit allow, and this nice blank screen says that it's worked, believe it or not. So now for my access token, I can get back information about what I've listened to on SoundCloud. Or say favorite, right? So this is stuff that I've favorited on SoundCloud recently. So there's a live mix from Bauer. And I can do the same for my friends. So here's some stuff that Simon's favorited on SoundCloud. Retribution. I'm sure that's great. All right, so you can use this in your app as well, and you can get back information for specific apps too.
Great stuff. Let's go back to the slide and conclude this. So we've seen how to publish stuff or read stuff from the Graph API Explorer, but I guess that you guys in real life want to do that in code. And this is really simple. So here's an example of how you do that with the JavaScript API, SDK, I'm sorry, if you want to do that client side. Server side, you can use the PHP SDK that we have, and here's how you do it. Really simple again. We'll skip that because I think that we need to conclude. So what did we talk about today? We talked about the 4 steps that you need to use to build an Open Graph app as a developer. We discussed built-in actions, custom actions. We also talk about how you can read from the Open Graph and create personalized experience. And most importantly, we talked about what the Open Graph is about. And the Open Graph is a distribution engine. So if you publish to the Open Graph, Facebook will send traffic back to your application. This is super important, guys. If there's one thing you need to remember from this talk is that the Open Graph allows you to scale globally. Thanks.
Thanks.